Ahoy, pilots! Seth here. As you know, CloudAhoy is about three things: safety, proficiency, and fun. Today we're going to focus on the safety part. We'll debrief one of my own flight lessons where we did a simulated engine out in the pattern. We'll be able to use CloudAhoy to see how I reacted to that simulated engine out. We'll also be able to come to some conclusions about how I could do better the next time something like that happens. To get started, let's review the power loss checklist for the CTLS light sport that I was flying. We'll use CloudAhoy to see how I did establishing best glide, what the wind conditions were like during the simulated emergency, and what my speed was during my approach to landing. I've decluttered the flight so that we can focus on the segment where the simulated engine out occurred. I'll open up the profile view for that segment. The dashed blue and gray line is the airspeed during the maneuver, and the solid blue line is my altitude during the maneuver. The CloudAhoy plane is moving along our flight path here, right up to the point where this simulated engine out occurs. Keep an eye on the altitude and airspeed display in the profile view. Notice that after the power loss, my airspeed immediately starts dropping. Best glide is 78 knots. After the power loss, I let my airspeed drop all the way to 70 knots, well under best glide speed. The second item in the power loss checklist was to determine wind speed and direction and to pick a suitable landing site. We can use the CloudAhoy wind vectors to get an idea about what the wind was doing at the time of the simulated emergency. Since I'm so close to the crossing runway, that seems like the best place for me to make my landing. If it had been real windy, though, I might have chosen a different location so I could land into the wind. Now that I've chosen my landing location, I need to set up my approach. My instructor pointed out that I'd gotten slow and that I was a bit higher than I wanted to be. So I started descending, but I didn't pay enough attention to my airspeed during the descent. Before I know it, I'm starting my turn to final at 83 knots. That's 30 knots over VREF, and I still have altitude I need to get rid of. To add even more context to the debrief, I'll add a video of the final approach that I captured with my GoPro, as well as a simulated 3D cockpit view, which is great if you don't have a video. You can see through the windscreen that I'm definitely coming in high. You can also see my instructor's hands move towards the controls as she begins to help me during the approach. She's helping out because I'm having quite a bit of trouble establishing the forward slip that I need to reduce my altitude without adding too much airspeed. I'm already well above VREF, which is 54 knots. My instructor helps me get the slip set up and continues assisting until we're at the point where I can safely complete the landing. Debriefing this simulated engine out highlighted many things that I didn't notice while I was in the cockpit. I didn't establish best glide. Doing so is one of the very first items on the loss of power checklist. I didn't manage the aircraft's energy very well, something that's important during a power loss scenario. I ended up high and fast, which I guess is better than low and slow, but still a place for me to improve. I need more practice performing forward slips. Had I been able to establish the forward slip on final myself, I'm certain my instructor would have been able to remain a passenger throughout the entire landing. Practicing this sort of scenario, debriefing it, and then revisiting the debrief regularly will make me a safer pilot. Thank you for debriefing this flight with me. If you have any questions, please email info@cloudahoy.com.